Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming for me and Caleb's webinar. This is Caleb's first webinar with
Yes.
WeStutter at Work, so we're very excited to have him. He's going to kill it. Okay. It is 8:34. We will officially kick off at 8:35 to give people just a couple more.
So,
8:35 right now. So,
right.
Um, welcome everyone. I'm Ariel Mahlmann and I have with me Kayla Brown. We are on the We Stutter at Work committee, and this is our webinar for dealing with bias and discrimination in the workplace. Housekeeping things, as per usual, um, keep yourself on mute, and throughout the webinar, we'll have discussion points, and we'll call on a couple people at a time. So if you want to use the little like raise hand feature in Zoom, that would be spectacular. And later on, the PowerPoint slides and this recording will be available to watch on demand. And for the agenda, here's what we have today. So, me and Caleb are super excited to talk about this. So we're going to start off by, some good old vocabulary, implicit versus explicit bias for people who stutter and how they show up in the workplace and in other parts. We're going to have examples of workplace bias and discrimination specifically related to stuttering. And then we're going to go through strategies for addressing bias and discrimination and making sure you know your rights and some suggested resources. So, with that, actually, I'll go into a shorter introduction. I'm Ariel, as I said. I am the We Stutter at Work committee leader. I've been leading it for almost a year, and I've been on the committee for a couple years, and it's a fantastic committee. I love it. I love all of the projects we get to do, and I've always been very passionate about, um, you know, teaching myself mostly and offering advice to other people when I can about how to really feel your most comfortable, authentic self in the workplace, and how allowing yourself to stutter can make you a better employee and you can advance further in your career. So, those are some topics that I am very passionate about, and I'll allow Caleb to introduce himself real quick as well.
Thank you so much. My name is Caleb Brown. I've been a part of NSA a little over two years now. I started as a chapter leader, and I've been stuttering all my life. I come from a family of stutterers. I've been on part of the We Stutter at Work committee now a little over a few months now. I've kind of took on this role of being able just to express and express my stutter openly to my coworkers in each place that I worked at, and I'm really active on LinkedIn, and just really have that compassion for people who stutter in the workforce. And I feel like there's no role that stutters that we can do any role that we put our mind to. And yeah, I'm just really happy to just be part of the committee, and we have a great team, and it's been great so far.
So far, I hope it remains just as great throughout the rest of your time on it. Anyways, thank you again for being here. So I am going to let Caleb kick off the first slide. He has good stuff to talk about here.
Yeah. So just there's some implicit bias in the workplace. So it's unconscious attitudes or stereotypes that influence how we perceive and interact with others. An example could be assuming a person who stutters is nervous, or shy or less competent. I also want to make the make an announcement too. Feel free if you guys have any. It is open the discussion. I don't want to feel like I'm reading just we're reading a slide. If you have a question or want to feel free just to raise your hand. But also just going back to the slide, it may look like people it can implicit bias can look like it may look like people finishing your sentences, skipping over you in meetings or questioning you ability or comfort level just to lead. I know for me personally, I am in the customer service um, customer facing role just in my past jobs I've been at. And I think there has been times where there have been some unbiased or stereotypes that can happen in the workplace. And it's something that also like the media and um some stuff that people may not know that is that can be biased because I am very open about my stutter. It's something that I do announce to my coworkers and for them not to have specific uh, bias towards me. And so that's a little bit about a little short story about that.
What kinds of instances, Caleb, have you experienced with implicit bias working in customer service?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for me, it's been, in my past role, being in a job where I'm having to take multiple phone calls. Sometimes people may think that when I first started, a lot of the coworkers didn't think that I would like doing phone calls and would kind of geared me towards doing more of the chat box and just responding to people on via messages. And so I was like, hey, no, it's something that I want to be able to talk on the phone. I'm not ashamed of my stutter. It's something that I just love being able to talk on the phone with people instead of um, being geared towards being on the computer or responding to via text message to people about their our service that we're giving them. So that's a little bit about how I had to deal with it. Um, Most
Did
people,
they question like, "Oh, are you comfortable talking on the phone?" Or were they like, "You do realize that this job entails talking on the phone?" Like, did people make any of those kind
yeah,
of
there
comments
was,
and then you're
yeah,
like,
yeah, they did. Some people like when I was, like I said, a lot of people were like, "Hey, we just thought when you originally got hired, so there was a couple coworkers related to us, and also like the bosses told us that hey, he's a person who stutters, and I'm going to just we didn't think that he would be comfortable to being on the phones and taking multiple phone calls. But that was why I joined the role was to be where I wanted to be
"Yeah."
talking um, with customers and taking phone calls um, each day.
That's that's a big thing because it's not like it sounds like this job wasn't something you just applied to and didn't realize how much like talking it entailed. So it's like on the one hand, it's like I can sort of appreciate someone, you know, considering, oh, would they be comfortable because maybe they don't want to put me in an uncomfortable situation. But on the other hand, I'm like, I don't need you to baby me. Like, I applied for this job. I know what it entails. And if I didn't want to do it, I wouldn't have applied. And I
Yeah,
don't know how many people who stutter are like, oh, I want to work in a job where I have to call people on the phone all the time. So that's awesome, Caleb. Good for
yeah.
you.
Also, we got a question from Carl, um, my good friend
The Carl? Oh,
Carl
coffee?
Coffee. He said, what advice do you have for people who aren't out with their stutter yet? Any tips on how they might bring that up to their team, um, manager on the job? Yeah, it's a really good cool question, Carl. I think for me, um, I always I always like start at the very beginning. I think that's something that I did learn far as with my hiring managers and who originally is hiring me and my direct supervisor. Um, very just being very open. Hey, very upfront. Hey, I'm a person who stutters. This is a little bit about my backstory and giving them that heads up, and it also took the pressure off me not feeling like I have to outperform or I um out have to strive for putting that so much pressure on me where I'm having to make up in a different area, if that makes sense. So I would say being upfront at the very beginning of your hiring process.
We have some great um, tools to share with you guys about um, telling people who stutter when we get to the part about requesting accommodations. And I'm really excited to share those tools with you guys. They're going to be great. Okay, so we have learned about implicit bias from Caleb. Now we're going to talk about explicit bias, our favorite kind to receive. Woo. So explicit bias is the opposite. It's conscious and intentional prejudices or beliefs that people openly express. One of the most common ones, oh, did you forget your name? Ha ha ha. Yeah. No, I didn't, but thanks though. Or like, oh, you speak really well for someone with a stutter, or like, I don't think you're the best fit for this job or this project because you have to speak a lot and you kind of can't, like, any kinds of those comments, like, and so it could look like sentences like what I just said. It could also look like flat out being excluded from projects or other kinds of experiences because of your stutter. Reluctance to hire, derogatory comments, unfair performance evaluations that focus more on like how you talk instead of what you actually contribute. So that could mean like if there's a communication part on your job performance and it doesn't quite match up, like the score you got there compared to all of the other areas, and there's no like real reason why, I'd be like, probably, you're biased. I had an unfortunate experience with this sort of indirectly, but I was in a meeting and my coworker was telling a story about an encounter he had, and he was sharing how this guy that he was in a meeting with pretended to stutter for amusement, and then everyone in the room was like cracking up. And I sat there listening to this man tell the story with my mouth wide open, and I was like, and no one else in the room with me laughed, thank goodness. I think they all were like, that's not funny, like that's not a good story, like you should not say that stuff. And it was so uncomfortable, and it sucked, even though it wasn't pinpointed at me, he wasn't talking to me. Just hearing how he was talking about how that exchange of being around someone who pretended to stutter just for the laughs of it, like, made me super uncomfortable. I did end up, confronting him about it, and you know, we've moved on, but it definitely sucked. And I'm sure that there are people here who have experienced way worse, and it sucks that that's the kind of world we live in, but there's only so much we can do about it.
I had a question. Did
Hmm.
you like confront that person via like a message? I know we're gonna talk about it more, but I like was it via message or was it like more one-on-one sit down or like how that I
It
catch?
was it was via like a Teams message. I didn't say anything in the moment because I was A, kind of in shock at what I was hearing, and then also B, like I was really angry in the moment. And I knew if I spoke up right then and there, I was just going to be, speaking with heat and anger. And also, I knew that I was going to stutter a lot more when I was trying to like speak in the heat of the moment. And I knew that wouldn't help get my point across to this man. So I thought about it for a couple of days. I talked with my speech therapist about it, about wanting to address this person because never really like confronted someone like that after the fact. So I sent him a Teams message and um explained how I felt, and then he called me immediately afterwards and was like extremely apologetic. And this happened years ago. And to this day, whenever I cross paths with him, he still says like, I still feel so bad about that. I apologize again. And I'm like, I appreciate that. It has been years at this point. Um, but so that's how that exchange went. And I'm glad it went that way because I don't know what I would have said if I had spoken up right then and there on the spot. I probably wouldn't have said what I actually wanted to say to get across my point. So,
Yeah. I do the same thing. I just in the past, I would do the same thing as far as gathering my thoughts after and yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And it's like sucks that I have to, like, I wish I could just like respond with like a really good comeback or like a really good like fact about stuttering. But when I'm upset, like any human is, whether you stutter or not, like, when you're upset and you're speaking in the heat of the moment, you're usually not going to have like the perfect response. And then I think the other side of that coin is like, well, if I'm not speaking up now, am I really being an advocate if I'm holding my tongue for a while? And you still are. So
Yeah.
everyone has a different experience with it. So now that we've defined those, identifying them, apart from the examples me and Caleb just shared, we have some more here that Caleb can go through.
Identifying biases and what that looks like at work. So it can be left out of meetings or high visibility projects. It could be like frequently receiving negative comments or backhanded compliments about your speech. Also, like performance on reviews are like lower in communication without any identifiable reason why. Not given the opportunity to present your work at meetings, and talking over you and finishing your sentences. Something that I wanted to touch on this with identifying biases was people talking over you or finishing your sentences. I think it's already hard enough as far as for me having a customer being in a customer in the past being in a customer facing role, but when you have your coworkers talking over you, that I can be very delightable, and it can just for me in the past it just had like a snowball down effect, and like man, like I just feel like I'm already having trouble with being in a customer facing role and with the clients that I'm facing, but then having your coworker or your colleagues not understanding you and finishing your sentences. So this is some of this that I did identifying biases that can happen in the workplace.
And I want to note, like, it's like I would consider normal human behavior in communication, especially in like one-on-one conversations, to unintentionally interrupt or finish someone's sentences. Like I I am definitely guilty of that. And I'm a person who stutters, and I tend to do that with people who do stutter, with people who do not stutter. And there is no ill will behind it whatsoever. It's just like, if I can predict what I think someone is going to say, even if they talk super fast, like sometimes I still end up, cutting them off. And I try really hard not to do that, but like there are some instances I think where it really is just part of like normal like human interaction. However, there's always an opportunity for you to be like, I would, I enjoy talking with you. I would appreciate if, you could like let me get there on my own. I'm sure it's not intentional, but it just helps me, you know, communicate better. Like there's certainly ways you can address it. But I don't want to just put out the blanket statement that anyone who like talks over you or interrupts is, out to get you. I think a
Yes.
lot of times it's just part of like how we are with people.
And also, like I feel like I also wanted to reason why that kind of pointed that to last. All of them were extremely great points, but the reason back because I feel like too that's the most time where it people mean well too, and so they don't. It's not. I have people finish my sentences, but they also mean well, and they don't mean in times where they don't mean anything. Um they just a lot of times they just don't mean anything, and so I also wanted to Carl got had a question too. Has anyone got a backhand compliment
I
from a
was just
coworker?
typing back to that.
Oh, so sorry. Sorry,
No, no,
sorry.
no, no. I
He
want
said
to hear your response to that, Caleb.
he said something like it was something like your speech is so much better today. How do you respond to that? Um for me in that moment, I'm like uh I I had takes me a little bit of time to process, but in the moment I'm like, I'll usually say, oh, thank you very much. My speech does my speech does fluctuate, and I have my up and down days. Um, and I'll usually end up having a conversation with them. Hey, that kind of shouldn't be saying that, or some words like that. But um, I've had that happen before.
Yeah, I stopped saying thank you whenever people said that. For the longest time, it was just my like human like reaction to be like, "Oh, thank you." But I had to retrain myself to not say thank you because it's not supposed I don't interpret it as a compliment, even if the speaker may intend for it to be. So my go-to is pretty much what you said, Caleb, just without the thank you part. I
Yeah,
just will say like my speech is different every day, and it doesn't really bother me, or it bothers me no less on a disfluent day than it does on a fluent day. Or I may comment on the fact that like, oh yeah, I happen to be speaking more fluently right now, but it is up and down. Like,
yeah,
so I will like kind of comment back what they said, but not like accept the compliment.
yes.
That's my like,
Yeah.
like poo poo kind of like response to that.
I just a little bit. I've been in my current role that I'm
Oh,
at.
administrator.
Sometimes people kind of can also quite question like my speaking to tech or want to know about my speaking to techniques and like, oh, hey, why do you talk at a lower voice, or why do you talk at a or why you use like sounding, because I use easy onset. And sometimes people think, oh, you're talking so you're talking so low, or that helps me be able to talk low with my speech. And sometimes Um, some coworkers don't understand that. So I also want to throw that out there too.
Yeah, I think it's, in a way, it's it's a good opportunity when people make comments, even if they're not good comments, because then it that opens the door for you to have that conversation and turn it into a moment of education and advocacy. And it can be a starting point for improving someone's relationship with you in the workplace. So I think, it's not always a bad thing. Try to look at it as an opportunity more.
Yes.
So the hiring process, this is probably what like people question the most, like for people who are interested in practice interviews through WeStutter at work. Almost always it's like, I think I'm getting turned down because of my stutter. What do I do? It's such an it's a very hot topic, I think, because there are many factors that go into a job consideration, and it's so easy for people to pin it on something else than your stutter, because they're not going to obviously like say, oh, it's because you stuttered. Like that's like, immediate violation. But there's definitely ways people skirt around that. But I mean, I'm sure everyone here has had these kinds of instances, like questioning, like, do you feel you have strong verbal communication skills? I'm like, I wonder if you would ask that to everyone or just me because of how I sound when I talk right now. People saying like, it's okay, just relax, like it's just a casual interview, blah blah blah. Um, or like you said, Caleb, in the beginning, people politely steering you to another job that doesn't require as much communication. It's like, no, not necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's tons of ways that we have received bias and discrimination at work hiring process, but now it's like, what do we do about it? Right, Caleb?
Yes, for
What
sure.
do we do about it?
And yeah, no, you touched on the
Okay. I want to start off. Well, actually, I'm going to let Caleb start off,
yes.
but after we go through a couple of these things, I want to hear from you guys, the audience. How have you addressed things in the past, and how have they worked out for you, or have you not addressed but you want to? So ponder that, raise your hands. We'll come back after you have some time to think about that, and I'll let Caleb go through these helpful tips right now.
Yeah. Do you want me to? I'll start. So you pick a few. Oh, um, start addressing.
Oh, sorry, I did not mean to.
No, you're.
Ah, what? Okay, sorry. I won't touch my mouse now.
Do you want me to start picking people?
Oh, I thought you were gonna go over here
Yes.
like
Oh, sorry.
advertise and
Yes.
then
Sorry.
we pick people.
First, before we pick people, I wanted to go over addressing biases in the hiring process. Advertise. Something that being out of college and finding a job, I found it extremely helpful to advertise. And some of it looks like I'm a person who stutters. You will likely hear my stutter. Please know it's not a reflection. It's not a reflect nerves or uncertainty in my responses. Um, so it can be a contributory to a popular belief. I'm comfortable speaking to people on the phone, giving them presentations. Something that I really found, I think I was talking more about it, but relieved a lot of my peace. It gave me a lot of peace is going into my interviews and confidently saying I'm a person who stutters. It's made me who I am. It does not reflect Um, it's not my stutter's not me, and it's actually has helped me have resiliency and a compassion for people. It's not about also about being a victim or trying to so much victimize or trying to be a victim to your stutter, but I'm personally stutters and I enjoy work and I love to help people. And so that's a little bit about how I address the biases in hiring process. So yeah.
Advertise messages on a t-shirt. Wouldn't, if you want to advertise stuttering on a t-shirt, check out the NSA's merch shop. Nothing says you stutter more than wearing something from the National Stuttering Association. I like what you brought up about like, it's not like I think there are a lot of people that want to advertise. And then there's some people that are like, well, I don't want to be the victim. I don't want to look like I'm playing that card. And I'm like, like you're not playing the victim if you're talking about it from a position of strength or explaining why a stereotype isn't true. Like I love weaving in things like, oh, actually, it's not from nerves or it's not proven to be genetic. It's not because I had a traumatic brain disorder. It's not because I'm anxious or scared to talk to you. It's just how I sound. And so, kind of helping people realize those things at the same time is, I think, really powerful. So we
Yeah.
have two hands raised. I'm going to start with the first one. Please forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Is it Raja? Is the J
That's right.
silent
Yeah,
or
you
no?
got it. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
RJ. Yeah.
Tell us your thoughts.
Um, can we go back one slide? And I wanted to ask you about that. That's what I wanted to comment on. So when you were, when people,
Oh, wait, that was the wrong one.
or the one before, yeah, the one before that.
Oh, this one.
There's too many.
Sorry. Was it?
It's
I
okay.
think this was the one beforehand.
Uh, yeah, the one that where people you were showing examples of people how they would try to finish you or finish off your sentence or speak for you or things like that. Yeah, that's it. That's the one. So, I remember at actually three different companies dealing with this, and
Hmm.
so it was just crazy because uh, at one company I had one uh, woman who had joined our team. I was a senior scientist on all the projects, but she started to always try to talk over me and talk through me. And she used to be in sales also, so maybe she was used to speaking more and thing. And so I had to stop her and tell her one day, just say, look, this is enough. Do you know what you're doing, and do you know how you're making me feel? And if you want to be friends, I need you to respect my I respect my speaking space. And basically, and so she didn't realize, so that kind of calmed her down a little bit, but she was still the personality of, she was just kind of like a bulldozer when it came to talking. She always wanted to be the first person to answer and the first person to kind of take over. And, she was very ambitious and, smart person. I'm not saying anything against that, but, you know, I think in her ambition, she was trying to cut me off just to try to get ahead or just try to look good. And that wasn't the right way to do it. And so I had to explain that to her. And then in a couple years before that, even like you were saying that you had heard somebody joking about us about about stuttering and laughing about it. I know a guy, one of our operations managers. He and somebody else on the construction crew, they were joking in the hallway about someone they heard on the radio who was stuttering, and they were mocking him and just cackling right in the hallway. And they don't know this, but I'm like a world class martial artist, and so I was so ready to stare him down and say, I want to meet you in the parking lot, and you tell me that to my face, a-hole. And my boss saw me. He's like, Roger, what's wrong? I this guy said that. He's like, oh, okay, calm down, just relax. We'll try to deal with it. He doesn't know what he's saying. I said, yeah, but it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right. So I feel like that guy got away with it because I never really, at that time, I was in a phase of my life where I was ashamed of my stuttering, like I was a broken bird. There's something wrong with me, and it took me a long time to realize there's nothing freaking wrong with me. I'm perfect the way I am, and if I stutter, that's okay. And so I started facing that fear, and now every time now, a couple of years ago, I finally took my last position at a new company. I finally checkmarked the box. I have a disability for the first time in my life. And that alone changed a lot of things because then during the conversation with HR and then with the next set of rounds, I think there were 3 or 4 rounds of interviews, and I got the job. And then out of like 100 people. And then when they hired me, I asked my boss, her and the other guy that I was working with, hey, I'm already here, I'm hired. So what was the one thing that you chose me over everybody else? And they actually said, Raja, it was your communication skills. Because I'd been taking Toastmasters and learning to listen and do a lot of personal development now. And I understand people's mindset. And she said, like, you had so much more experience there than almost every other candidate. Like, we didn't care about your speech challenges. It's you were the best person for the job because you have to talk to so many other people. You have to understand them.
Yes.
Right. Yep. So I hope that helps someone. Is that don't you're not broken. Nope. You're really not. So
a lot of people really liked what you said. Respect my stuttering. Oh, respect my speaking space. I like that a lot. I feel like people are gonna be like, I'm gonna take a mental note on that one. We can take one more. We can take John.
Hey everybody, are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, Raja, really like what you had to share. Those are some really, really awesome examples. And yeah, just there was there was a question in the chat. I think it was from Annabelle, and I think she was just wanting to post it to everybody. But I think it's an important one, and it's like, when do you? And I think sometimes a lot of people start to have this question. It's like, well, when do I self-disclose? Is it important to do it in the interview, or is it important to do it after the interview? And I know for me, at one point, interviews were the number one or one of the top situations where I didn't want to stutter in. There's always that story of the pill. Like if there was a pill where you could take it and not stutter. Well, that would be one situation where I would very much want to take that pill. And it's because I at the time I had felt that stuttering was a sign of weakness, and if I opened up about it, like at the interview, and if I admitted stuttering, I was in a sense admitting that I had a flaw, that I had a weakness. And for me, it was like, okay, if I could only just get through the interview and not stutter, then maybe afterward I'll start to stutter or I'll talk about it more. It's because I already got the job, and I'm good, at least for then. However, after a while, when I, when I began my own journey of acceptance and transformation, that the way of thinking, it completely flipped, hit on itself. And from now on, I really, really do make it a point to self-disclose at the interview, right at the very beginning of it, not waiting till I stutter in the interview, just right there at the get-go. And for one, I know for a fact that I'm always going to stutter a lot more than I want to in an interview, and and that's because I still don't want to stutter even to this day when doing interviews. But the act of self-disclosing in an interview, it's not admitting a flaw or weakness. It's the opposite. It's showing your potential employer that I'm okay with my stuttering, and I'm okay talking about it. I don't shy away from it, and by you being able to portray that confidence and self-assurance, that helps to inspire that same confidence and self-assurance in your potential employer. So that really has been a revelation for me, and with eh, every job I've gotten, it's really just set the stage at the beginning, because they know I stutter, so they know about me. They know how I want to be treated, and I tell people in the interview to give me a moment to get my words out. So it really so and after I'm hard, it really just sets up everything in the work environment really nicely. So those are my experiences.
Thank you for sharing, John. I relate to those. I resonate with those experiences. So
Yeah. Well said. Okay, so Caleb just went over this slide. Advertising, I mean, I feel like we could talk about advertising for days and days and days, but if anyone wants, more practice with advertising during an interview, I really encourage you to fill out a practice interview submission. Me, Caleb, Annabelle, John, two other people, Chris Bishek, and then of course Pam. We are all on the committee, and we would love to meet with you to help you talk through these things. So I would definitely encourage you to check out that resource if you need to. And this is probably my favorite slide here. So many times people are like, I think I got rejected, or I keep getting rejected because I stutter. I'm going to challenge you, ask why. Like, even when you didn't get the job, like, ask why. And so these two prompts, I think, are two similar but different ways you could ask. Thank you for your time. I'd appreciate any feedback on your decision to help me grow. If stuttering was a factor, so you're not accusing them, you're just saying if it was a factor, I just want to clarify that it does not affect my ability to perform the job's responsibilities, and I'm confident in my skills. And if they choose to respond to you, they're going to have to give you an actual reason why. And if they can't give you a good reason why, then it's like, you probably have your answer, and that's definitely not a company or a person that you would want to work for anyways. Another way is you could sort of also talk about misconceptions that they may be thinking of. I want to take a moment to address the common misconception. If my stuttering was a factor, I want to clarify that it does not impact intelligence, communication, effectiveness, or job performance. In fact, people who stutter excel in roles like Caleb and Raja and John that require strong communication, leadership, and problem solving skills. So, like, you're telling them, like, I can do this, and if you feel I'm not a good fit for this role because of another reason, tell me, but it's not because of my stutter, and here's why it's not because of that. So it's like you're telling people, and I really encourage you to ask why for every rejection, or even if you don't get a flat out rejection, even if they're ghosting you, like, ask them why, make them give you a reason why. And even if they don't, at the very least, it would be a learning experience for that hiring manager. They may be like, oh wow, like maybe I didn't handle that too well, and then they could take that experience and handle it better the next time around. Debbie, I just saw your comment about the guy on the popular show Survivor. We are well aware here at the
Yeah.
NSA, and we love Mitch so much. He's wonderful. Excited to hopefully see him go all the way. And I'm going to give this one to Caleb.
Yes. So addressing biases at work, speaking up using I statements, they encourage open dialogue and reduce the defensiveness and make others more receptive to feedback. I felt overlooked when I wasn't given a chance to present my ideas. I feel uncomfortable when my sentences are finished for me. I prefer to express my thoughts in my own way. I'm concerned that my performance review mentioned my speech stutter fluency rather than my work. I want to ensure my contributions are evaluated based on my skills and results. And I kind of feel like this also goes in to like the next slide too, because it's like something that I did start out in college and being at my first internship, and again constantly being on the phone. I was able to do with the HR it was kind of like a lunch and learn. So HR every day. I know some HR companies are different, but they would we would get a 30 minutes every week for HR to present something about just like a life story, or it can be this kind of called like lunch and learns. And something that I did was I was able to educate my colleagues on such stuttering and what it means, and just really also show them like, hey, this is what we have, what people who stutter have to offer. And one of the best feedback that I got when creating the one my presentation to present to my colleagues was, we are our own experts. And so if you guys are thinking about doing a presentation at your work, just realize that you are your own expert. Also, none of my employees, my colleagues at the time, knew about stuttering and what it was, and nobody knew. I was the first person that they met, and so that was like really empowering for me because I'm the first person they stutter. I'm the first person they know who stutters, and so I'm educating them, and that ultimately led to just a friendship with them. And I still talk to all my colleagues to this day from my previous job, and yeah, and so also it can be finding workplace allies. So it can just be helping like raising awareness. Like people want to know what organizations you're a part of, and also like they want to help be a part of, might want to be a part of the NSA or any other stuttering association.
I
And
love what you said. I mean, like educating colleagues can turn them into workplace allies, and it can turn them into close friends, like you just said, Caleb. Like it can be such a good experience. We stutter at work, the committee. One of our favorite activities we do is like employer outreach. We have done things like presented just kind of like a general like about stuttering, what it is, how to be an ally in the workplace, interviewing, all of these various topics to employers and employees. And it's usually like a lunch and learn kind of format, like what Caleb said. And I mean, the people who take time to come and like attend that, like they want to learn. And I think it's so heartwarming to see people give such, positive feedback whenever someone who stutters is willing to, share something so vulnerable with people. Like, we gave a presentation for John Ontiveros's company, and I mean the really sweet comments, like it went so well. And then another staff member shared with us like a screenshot of how she talked about stuttering. I think it was during like International Stuttering Awareness Day, and sent this little like Slack message about stuttering and the amount of like love and support that came from that. Like it's so sweet to see those things. And then I just wanted to address one thing from, why does it keep going backward? No. Okay, one thing here. The NSA published an article recently about stuttering in the military, and one of the people in it is Mike Molino, and he shared a perfect example of this. He was getting a performance evaluation, and he scored perfect in every other like category, except he was like rated 2 points lower on communication. And he went directly to his supervisor and was like, I don't agree on this. I scored perfect, and yes, I stutter, but it doesn't impede me from doing my job, getting my point across. I think it should be a 4.0, whatever it is. And his supervisor was like, yeah, I agree. And he changed it. That was that. Like, you never know if you don't address it. So I just think it's like, it's so powerful, and it can be really scary to do, but almost always. So also want to say, as all know, we can request reasonable. Oh, my audio is cutting in and out. I wonder if it's my maybe dying. Request reasonable accommodations at work. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe my AirPods were dying. You can request reasonable accommodations at work. I think all of us know that we can, but we don't really know how to. So we have these fabulous scripts for reaching out to a direct manager, a colleague, a hiring manager. And this one is if, like, imagine you're reaching out to your boss who knows already. As you know, I stutter. It doesn't impact the quality of my work, but certain communication situations can be tricky at times. To help me perform at my best, I would love to discuss a few accommodations, like being given extra time to respond in meetings before other people like jump in. I would like to avoid being called on unexpectedly, and I would like to have the option to contribute via, chat, email instead of speaking verbally if I can. Let me know a good time we can talk about this. Like, that tells them what is going to make you more comfortable, but in a way that's also showing how much more you can offer them on the job. So this is like one script.
Yes.
I love it so much.
And then for as far as for my HR profession, I send to the HR team. This is a request for communication accommodations. It can sound like I'm reaching out because I would like to discuss communication accommodations that they would help me excel and perform at my best within my position. Certain communication situations can be challenging for a person who stutters. Adjustments like allowing extra time to respond. I can be written input options or avoiding being called on unexpectedly. would significantly improve my ability to contribute effectively. I appreciate the chance to discuss this further and explore how we can align these accommodations with company policies. Please let me know a good time to connect. And it could be some like this that can really like also it helps with a confidence too, like self-advocacy helps with your confidence at work. And something that's really important to do.
Raja, you had a hand raised.
Yeah, I had just a quick tip I just want to add to also talking about advocacy and also about accommodations. One thing I have noticed, especially in like a laboratory environment where we're answering questions or we're trying to respond back to somebody's lab presentation or research presentation, you know, people would just jump up and answer a question, jump up and ask a question, and the person with the speech impediment, sometimes that extra split second you get cut off, so someone else gets to ask the question that you wanted to. So I went and talked to the manager and said, listen, I feel it's unfair for people to jump ahead of me when I have a good question to ask just because of my speech challenge. So could we just go in the order of hands raised? And all of a sudden that just solved that problem right away. And that's it. But because I asked them to do it, they say, oh, I didn't realize. We can definitely do that going forward. That's it. That's all it took.
It could be, you know, like the equivalent of like having subtitles on a video for people that may be hearing impaired. Like that's such a norm nowadays. Why not make something like using the hand raise thing in Zoom also the norm, or Teams or Slack, whatever it is. We also have for colleagues where it's fun to be more casual, where you're not requesting an accommodation as much as you're just telling them, here's what's comfortable for me. I hope it will work for you. Hey guys, I stutter. Certain things are more challenging. I want to make sure that I can contribute as effectively as possible. I want to just ask for your flexibility and patience regarding verbal communication. That could mean, you know, giving me some more time to respond during meetings, or keeping an eye on the chat box, like in here, when people want to talk but not speak up on the call. These minor adjustments can make a profoundly positive difference in how I engage and collaborate with all of you. If you have questions, happy to chat about it. Like, you can have something sound more informal and you're just letting them know you stutter, and this is how, you know, your communication preferences are, and that you are open to talking about it. And again, even if like people don't really respond to you, at the very least, hopefully they learned like something that they can take away for the next person that they meet who stutters. These scripts are available on the NSA's website on a blog post, but we're gonna have them in like a PDF on the website soon at some point. And so you can obviously take a look at these if you download the slide deck after this is over. Kayla, want to share some resources we have?
Yeah. And then for the resources, we start at work. We offer practice and interviews. So we can tailor. They're online. Your submission will goes through the We Stutter at Work committee, and we can tailor like the specific job you're looking to do, or is it for also getting into like a master's program, or just any interview. We would be able to tailor that hiring process, how it could look like. Some of the questions that they could ask. I know for me, it's like personally being able to practice my interviews if it's so I can just be better prepared and just have a kind of a set script. We also have blog posts, some really good information for you people's success stories, and we also have on-demand webinars. There's other things that We Stutter at Work has done, and don't forget to join our LinkedIn group. It's been growing a lot, and it's been has some really exciting things to share on there, and I feel like our whole LinkedIn presence has grown, and so been been really great. So some of the resources.
Yeah, and I also want to point out someone in the chat said that they feel like conducting interviews is harder. If you want to practice giving an interview, like if you're the manager and you find it, hard to give interviews, submit a practice one. I would be more than happy to pretend like I'm interviewing for a job and then you get to pretend that you're interviewing a candidate. Like it can go both ways as well. And I don't think that's really articulated on the website now that I think about it, but it totally can. I mean, I would be super nervous if my boss told me go out and like hire a person, I would be like, they're gonna think I'm incompetent if I stutter when I'm interviewing them. So like that would make me, really nervous. And yes, Carl, you're right. There is a whole topic in the We Stutter at Works on demand webinar library about when you're the interviewer, so you can definitely check that out. And I want to kind of end by asking everyone here to chime in. What's one takeaway you have from today that you can apply? Or if you have a question that wasn't addressed, ask it. My roommates are being kind of loud. Annabelle, go for it.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So for me, so a takeaway that I will take from today's discussion is that it's that so if you don't ask, you won't know. And so like for me, I feel that I'm pretty comfortable in just the not asking and just going with the flow and just doing the best that I can do. And like I feel that like I'm trying to ask for more is kind of doing too much. But I'm realizing that if I don't ask, I'm never gonna know. And it could be a yes, because a lot more people are more knowledgeable about stuttering, and you like never know who could have someone who stutters in their family. And so like I want to try to not be afraid to just ask for help and feel that it's okay for me to do that. And so that is my takeaway from today.
Oh, sorry, you go. Oh, I was gonna say, I wanted to. There was somebody that had a comment. I would say too. One of my takeaways was to having a response for a rejection email, and something that I didn't like, never did. And I'm like, when I got a rejection email, respectfully in the past, I was, oh, you guys can just go kick rocks, okay, it's all right. Like, who cares? It's okay. But I think having that ability to, hey, to respond after a rejection email and ensure, because it's not because if it was about my stutter, so that I to take away. So thank you for sharing that, Ariel.
Yeah, I mean, look, people always encourage you to ask questions, even if you don't get the job, even if you aren't a person who stutters. So why not we do that too, you know?
Yes.
Rob, do you have a hand raised?
Yes, I do. I was the one that talked about or I didn't talk about, I mentioned it about giving the interview. That to me, I find harder because you have a list, you're in a group, and you typically have, okay, you ask this question and you ask this question, so then it comes up, it's my turn, and then I get like what I said. It's just like, well, who's this guy that's interviewing me? You know what I mean? And I find it harder. I'd rather interview for a job because they actually expect you at that point to be a little bit nervous. But then when you interviewing someone, it's like, okay, well, who's this guy that's asking these questions? Especially when they're written out for you and you have to say them word for word. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was me. I find that part very difficult.
Trying to find it. I'm pretty sure you guys can see my screen still, but I mean, there's tons of on-demand webinars, and there's definitely ones. Ah, there it is. Leading the interview as a person who stutters. Can I copy this link?
Oh,
Well, I'm gonna send this in the chat so you have it. So you
okay.
have that resource right here. There you go.
Ooh.
Oh,
Because there
great.
are people the people that did this webinar like are managers and have hired people. So they have all the tea on that.
Okay.
I'm not that important yet.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anyone else have any takeaways that they want to share? Questions, comments, concerns where we could improve upon for our next webinar in Q3?
Body.
Don't all raise your hands at once.
I just wanted to say that I really really liked all of the tools that you all had offered. I want to echo what Annabelle said too. I really would have never have thought to really ask the questions like why I was rejected, or why you, and to kind of ask to say, hey, like, and then to even ask about your stutter, like the way you had worded it, like, hey, if it was because of my stutter, or just to say that, hey, if you had, yeah, there you go, awesome. If you had any concerns about my speech, I want to clarify that I still that other that it doesn't affect my uh ability to do the job and all that. I just thought, like, for me, this was my biggest take away, like Annabelle, but just all of the other tools that you two offered, I think, are just really helpful, and they really really help to uh they really really pr- pr- provide us with some things that they that that we can use going forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. We can take one more. Annabelle?
So I just want to say, so another takeaway from this webinar tonight is to not just assume, it's to ask questions, ask why, because when you assume, it could be the worst scenario in the world and you're stuck in that and you like truly believe it because because for me, so as a person who stutters, I feel that if I ask, just just um just just having the courage to ask, so it would be worse than just assuming and just feeling like I'm in the right and that they didn't want to talk to me because I'm a person who who stutters, or like they didn't call me back because of this, or like I didn't get the interview because of that, instead of just asking them and really hopefully getting the real answers.
Yeah, asking it is wonderful. It doesn't mean that you're weak in any way. It's just a different way to start a dialogue about it. I think it's you never know if you don't ask, you know. All right, with that, since it is 9:45, right on schedule, go us. We will give you guys your evening back. Thank you so much for joining. Me and Caleb are really passionate about this topic and stuttering at work in general. So thank you so much for coming, listening to us chat. This will be available on demand to watch. You can download the slides. I encourage you to again to check out these resources on the screen and reach out to us. You know, you can go to the landing page. You can email us, practice interview, whatever it is. Thank you guys so much for attending. Any last words, Caleb, before we sign off?
No, just thank you guys for attending, and we can be stay on the lookout for more we start at work webinars.